My name is Craig Picken. I'm an executive recruiter. More than a decade ago, I started my practice for one purpose: to use my experience as a former military aviator, business jet sales executive, and P&L leader to help aviation and aerospace companies and their executives be fast, adaptable, and strategic. I do these podcasts to inspire and inform, but more importantly, they are a focused platform to help business leaders grow. Welcome to the Aerospace Executive Podcast. Francois, how are you?
Very good. Thank you. Thank you.
So welcome to the Aerospace Podcast. I've got Francois Chopard on with me. Francois is the founder and managing director of Starburst, which is an aviation, space, and defense incubator. So you're seeding, I take it you're seeding startup companies, new ventures, new technology, acting as an early stage investor, venture capitalist. Tell us more about Starburst.
Yeah, so Starburst is a project that I started in Paris about 10 years ago. And then it has grown into something more global. And as a result, now we are about 60 people across 8 different offices and countries. And so it has become much bigger than what I thought at the beginning would be just connecting aviation and aerospace startups to large corporation. And based on that idea, we built several programs. We started by a more late stage, what we call seed to Series A, 12 months accelerator program. That went well, and we're going to talk about it later on, I'm sure, as we are seeing more startup progressing, evolving, and going public. And based on that program, we built more early stage local programs in a handful of cities where we help create spin-off technology from university, help create new ventures. I have a little bit more to say into what's necessary to the aviation industry, and that's basically fueling our pipeline from across the globe, early stage to late stage, and then Series A type of investment.
What got you into starting an incubator? I mean, that's a pretty big leap. How'd you get that idea?
So I'm electrical aerospace engineers. Started my career at Airbus Research Center. Spent 2 years also on one of the U.S. Air Force research lab, upstate New York. So I spent 2 years in Rome, working as an engineer and a researcher. That was super excited. I knew I didn't want to become too technical, and so I like strategy consulting more and entrepreneurship. And so my career was between starting new business and then going back to consulting. Before Starburst, I was a partner at Oliver Wyman for like 7 years. And yeah, I was working on the innovations and aerospace. Innovation was always been my specialty. I spoke at Davos on innovation 10 years ago, and so I was monitoring from Europe, the rise of SpaceX and other startups, and looking at all the corporates, struggling to develop disruptions internally. And so I knew that there would be a need for a match between these two type of organizations. I knew corporate, they need to understand, to be explained what's going on, and startup, they need at some point the corporates to get contract and traction. And so that's how I came up with the ideas about 10 years ago.
It's pretty cool. What's got you excited right now? A lot of stuff happening. Obviously, tech moving quick.
Yeah.
What's got you excited in aviation?
And so
eVTOL is the buzzword. We've talked to we've talked to one of your other incubator companies, which was OSK, and it's a pretty exciting world. What's got you the most excited?
So we are excited about mobility as a global theme, and so how can you go as fast as you can from point A to point B? Time is of the essence. We don't want to spend time going to one place to another. So it has to be efficient. It has to go faster, cheaper. And that's what we are investing on. And so if you look at all the different type of transportation, whether it's urban mobility, we look at eVTOL. When you look at regional mobility, we look at smaller airports, business model like Surfair combined with Ampere, to do these 500 miles trip from smaller airports, so closer to your place, bringing more electric, so you can reduce the cost of flying and the cost of this platform, so you can offer a cheaper service to go for example from LA to San Francisco. So that's what we're looking at. And then now it's electric. Tomorrow it will be more hydrogen. Then we are looking obviously at supersonic, which is another path. And then after that, how to go faster from point A to point B. That's the Virgin Galactic model, where you take a rocket, go to 100 kilometers above the Earth, wait for the Earth to turn around, and then come back. And so that's what the range of area that we are looking at. So that's 3 or 4 different segments. And then in each of these, we are looking at what are the enabling technology that need to happen in order to make these other platform or business model successful, and whether it's battery, whether it's hydrogen, whether it's how do you store and produce hydrogen, and so all the energy density the difficulties or challenge that we are facing now with batteries and eVTOL. And then so that's one segment, and so that's why we've invested in Ampere, in Zero Avia. In another one, it's a Korean startup but based in the US called Mobius Energy. They are helping the battery pack take less space and cool in a more efficient way. And then we are looking at the autonomous factor, so removing the pilots. Even though I'm an instrument-rated pilot, I love flying around. For commercial purposes, if you remove the pilot, or at least come up with one pilot instead of 2, or no more pilots, then you save again, and the service you provide is going to be cheaper. So we look at everything that is related to autonomy, whether it's sensors, data link, so whether it's through space or through the grounds, automated ATM. Right now the pilot has to talk a lot with the air traffic manager to communicate and get instruction. How can this be automated? I don't know if you've seen, but Garmin has come up on a couple of jets. That you press a button and then it's called auto land. If the pilot has an issue, then you press a button and it's supposed to land automatically. So it's used right now in an emergency mode, but soon it should be available. And
I think Cirrus has got the auto land right now in their SR, the Cirrus jet certainly has it. I think the SR-22 has got it. I think Piper's starting to put it in some of their airplanes.
So that the autonomy, and so more sensors, more data processing, more AI, of course, right, to navigate through these complex environment and take the best decision to support the pilots.
The AI part, the machine learning part to me is pretty exciting. When I think about, you've got 2 pilots of a 737, take one out and you've got AI, you've got machine learning in the right seat. Does that do it? I mean, is that going to be enough? My guess is it's going to be it's a ways away. I think that we're still learning the man-machine interface, but I think that's more a realistic path. Than ever. You tell me. I mean, what are you seeing from you tell me what you're seeing from a tech and industry point of view. Is that are we anywhere close to that? Is it realistic?
Yeah, so there's a couple of startups actively working on that, and so it's already working. The question now is how reliable it is. Are we reaching the -9 reliability type of things? But technically it's already working. The auto land, and so when you look at the pilots, the the busiest moment are, taking off and landing. These are the moments where, the load on the pilot of the higher, and that's what you want to try to reduce. And there's two ways you can reduce that, by having a plane that is more, automated. The power, the flaps and everything is more automated. And then the the discussion with the air traffic controllers needs to be also more automated. Right now, when you look at how the planes are sequenced, it's still look a little bit random. Of course, there's path, but there's so much more, progress and improvement that can be done just on the air traffic management, the approach from to the airport or the takeoff. Right now, they are taking a lot of margin to separate the planes, mostly because planes don't talk to each other. If planes knew what was around them, then you could reduce the margin, and that's part of all the improvement that we are looking at.
What for you guys to seed a company or to bring it into your incubator, what are you looking for? I mean, what's some of the criteria that you're looking at? How do you decide what you're going to fund? How do you decide who you're going to work with? How do you work with them?
And yeah, it's a very good question. And the end is that the most fundamental questions. And of course, we know the technical area that we are looking for. So we know what to expect. In some case, the technology that we are not aware of, and that that we are closely monitoring once we are aware. But at the end, it's mostly about the founders. The team that is starting the business and running it. Is how do you feel working with them for the next 5 to 10 years, and do they have what it takes to not only start but raise 5 million, raise 20, being able to execute, do the right pivots if it's necessary of the technology they're pursuing is a dead end, adapt to the financial markets. 2 years ago we are not talking about SPAC. Now there's SPAC everywhere. So now and so it's a new way of fundraising. Nobody knows how long it's going to last, but is the founder the proper guy to be listed on the stock market, and that type of thing. And so we are really investing in people at the end, and picking the women and men that we want to work with for the next 5 years or 10 years, whether it's going to go well or go bad.
So now, are you guys actually, are you working with, are you sort of in the middle with, hey, we've got the network of investors, venture capitalists, and we're looking at the technology? You playing a lot of matchmaker, or people coming to you for more mentorship and guidance on the technology? How's it all working, and how's it all working?
Yeah, we are some kind of a hub for a couple of reasons. One of the main reasons is that we have all the corporate connections. That's where we come from. Strategy consulting. We've been talking to the corporate for a very long time, and so we have about 50 corporates paying us a retainer just to have access to our ecosystem. And so naturally, when VC or private equity wants to do some kind of due diligence, they know that we are the right experts. And all the startup that we are taking into our portfolio, they have been vetted by these corporates during some of our selection committee. And so it's part of the process.
What's when people are coming to you, they're getting on your radar. What gets you excited about? You talk about space, you talk about urban mobility, you were talking about defense. Are you focusing, you talk about eVTOL, batteries, things like the infrastructure behind all that? Are you experts in these areas? Are you able to look at the tech and go, hey, this is really cool, let us help you develop the plan?
So of course, so we have some kind of knowledge. Obviously, most of us are engineers. I'm more familiar with aviation. Some of the team are more with space and everything. So we spread the first level of knowledge, but then our our strength is that we are able to reach out to the right experts. So at the end, when we have a very technical questions, we reach out to the right experts.
So you think the next? I was looking at your website. You've got, it's an interesting thing. You've got the next $1 billion, the next unicorn is going to be an aviation company.
But it's funny because, and I'm writing the next piece. I wrote this about 4 years ago, and 4 years ago there was probably SpaceX was the only unicorns, and maybe another one.
Right.
In the next, in the last 12 months, and in the next 12, we should have not just 2, but more in 20 or 25 unicorns, which it's a big deal. So thanks to the SPACs, but also thanks to that ecosystem that has been growing for the last 10 years and that reaching maturity. And it's a perfect timing because we have all these late stage startups that have raised between 20 to 100 millions that are ready for the next round, and going directly to an IPO is kind of raising their next round.
So let me ask you this, like in the medical industry, you think about pharma, a lot of the innovation is done by incubator companies. I think about, some friends of mine, private equity, Taysha Pharmaceuticals, they're, Dova Pharmaceuticals, small companies, Verica, small companies that have been incubated, private equity investment. They get to a point and the goal is, hey, look, we're gonna develop the product, we're gonna do the R&D, and then a Johnson & Johnson or Pfizer will come down and they will just buy it. Yeah. It's less. Are you seeing Boeing and Airbus, Northrop, Lockheed getting interested in kind of that same concept to take some of the risk off of them and developing everything?
And it's very interesting because when I started Starburst 10 years ago, that was my vision. What I said is that aerospace is 10 years behind the biotech and the medtech industry. Yeah. And now when you look at whether it's Airbus or Boeing, they are not set up to invest $1 billion on the next eVTOL. They can put 10 billion on the next 737. They have no problem for that. But the 1 billion on the next eVTOL, the stock market, the investors are not investing in Boeing for them to take that type of risk. Mm-hmm. And in the last 5 years, neither Airbus or Boeing have put 1 billion on the table to develop this eVTOL. That's why we've seen Joby Aviation, Archer recently, Wisk to some extent, Yang in China, and others in Germany. And so whether Airbus and Boeing are going to acquire them, I think now they're going to be listed. It might be a little bit too late without revenue. So. But we've seen Boeing, and it's more a US type of way of doing business by growing through acquisition. Mm-hmm. Boeing has been already very active, buying a lot of mid-cap type of startups, mm-hmm. And so definitely we're going to see that even more. The Raytheon and UTC are finalizing our merger. Northrop did a big one. Recently, but now that's that's Spark Market, all these IPO, we're going to see a lot of acquisition from the prime in the next 5 years. That's for sure.
Or are you just going to see a new? I mean, I know Boeing is huge. They do a lot of M&A too underneath it. They bought Jeppesen, they bought Free Flight. Yeah. I know Airbus has its sort of incubator, next level technology group out of California.
Are you going to see the SpaceX-like type of startup reaching almost like $100 billion valuation? And so what is interesting, we did some math, and when you look at Airbus and Boeing valuations, how they decrease in the last 3 years, it's about the amount of SpaceX rose up. And so yes, of course, the aerospace and defense market is growing, mostly because defense budget country by country are heavily increasing, and also the airline passenger business is also growing, even though it went to a curve. It should come back. Mm-hmm. but at the end, yeah, these new players are gonna, take some market cap out of the big one.
Yeah, so let's talk about SpaceX a little bit. I mean, Elon Musk, obviously, prodigy, but the thing that he's been able to do, he's able to capture all the great engineering. I mean, he's reduced the cost of launching a satellite by like a gajillion percent. I mean, it's next to nothing compared to what it was 20 years ago.
Yeah.
Is Elon the next is SpaceX the next Boeing? Is there another company out there that we're not seeing that's going to say, hey, look, you got SpaceX over here in the defense space. We're gonna own the urban mobility or whatever that looks like, and we'll just sell to Boeing and Airbus. I mean, is that whole ecosphere about ready to change and go from what's essentially a commercial aircraft oligopoly to something different?
Yeah, when you look at aerospace and defense, everything pretty much has been disrupted, except the 320, 737, type of segment. That seems to be still the most complicated one to disrupt. Bombardier tried to enter that market and failed. Embraer is still, a little bit, smaller than that segment. The Russian and the Chinese are still trying to enter that market with some incredible difficulties. So that's that part. Yeah, it might take a little bit more time to be disrupted, but who knows? But everything, all the rest, eVTOL is going to disrupt the small helicopter business for sure. Regional aircraft with hydrogen power is going to disrupt what's existing. So yeah, everything is being disrupted. And when you look at SpaceX, they disrupt the launching. They're going to disrupt the telecommunications satellite business, but by a huge extent.
Look, and so the interesting thing to me is I've been around airplanes. I've been around airplanes a long time, and I'm watching the eVTOLs, the Archers, the Jobies, the Archers. Look, I'll just be pretty candid. Everybody that knows me knows I don't see the business plan. I'm looking at going, you guys are worth $4 billion. I'm going to start a SPAC and it's going to be called When Pigs Fly. And I'm going to create a saddle for pigs. I'm going to put wings on them. I'm going to fly people on them. I'm going to say the only downside of this is you got to feed them. Because I see guys like Robinson, which make a really good helicopter. They put a battery on it. You got a great if you need, but it doesn't use that much fuel. I mean, am I missing something here? Tell me what I'm missing in this whole sphere. Because developing airplanes is very expensive, and the fuel is only a very small component of it.
So the thing is, if you just look at the eVTOL, it looks very much like big helicopters. So it's hard to see that that's going to disrupt anything, right? But if you look at it and then and look at LA, for example, LA used to have 300 helipad across the city, but they have disappeared because it was too noisy, bothering too many people around. And so these helipad have shrunk, or you still have a few on top of hospitals, mostly. And so you need to see that eVTOL business with, LA with 300 helipads. And then with 300 places where you can land, then it's starting to make sense again. And then you need to look at the eVTOL as if it was the price of a car. Of course, we are still far away from that. But once and that's where Elon Musk has been super, successful, pushing the boundaries of the performance, but mostly of the cost.
Right.
If you see these, and at the end, these eVTOL, they are not that complex because it's mostly electrical engines, and electrical engines, they're supposed to be super cheap, super reliable, very easy to maintain. And so it's easy to think that at some point, these $1 million vehicle will cost, $100,000. And once you reach that, that number of, the vehicle itself is $100,000, then you reach, an affordable service that's, not everybody can take, but everybody who is, today taking an Uber can have access to.
Do you think we're really going to be able to get? Well, I mean, look, maybe I'm not the early adopter to technology, and it's something I get my arm around, quite frankly. But yeah, look, I guess 20 years ago, if anybody said Elon Musk could launch a satellite for what he's doing, cost wise now, and he's making money on it, everybody said you're crazy.
With Starship, they're going to be able to reduce the cost of launching by a factor of 100.
Right.
And let's say their first launch was in 2008. So in 12 years, they've been able to reduce the cost by 100. So if you apply the same ratio for eVTOL, and we know that the automotive industry is super efficient. And when you see, Toyota investing $1 billion almost in Joby, when you look at Hyundai, the Korean auto manufacturer, investing $1 billion into their own vehicle, that at some point, the costs are going down.
What do you think the market? What's the market? Well, worldwide, what do you think the market for eVTOL is? How many units do you think that we've got out there? We've got the ability to put into service.
When you look at the airline industry, it's like the legacy airlines compared to the low-cost airlines. Now everybody can fly because you have the Southwest and then the low-cost airlines in the US. You have EasyJet and Ryanair in Europe, where you can buy tickets to go from London to Nice for $50. And now pretty much everyone with an employee with a minimum wage can fly. Basically. And so that trend, I think that's going to happen to that type of mobility the same way. And when I'm talking about LA because it's a perfect playground for this eVTOL. And we've seen this eVTOL company going to a large corporation, SpaceX, for example. They realized that out of the 10,000 people working in Hawthorne, half of them are coming from East LA. And so SpaceX could almost pay for that commute instead of paying for bus. They could pay for this commute. That's, of course, it's going to be a little bit more expensive, but they could pay for their employees.
Yeah, no, when I lived out in LA, every Friday I had to drive. Every Friday a customer wanted to meet me at Van Nuys Airport. And I just happened to live in Huntington Beach, which meant Friday afternoon at 4:00, I was on the 405 South for 70 miles, and it was 3 hours. You always thought, wouldn't this be cool? Look, the market's there for it. Well, I think it's a great idea. It'll be interesting to see. But the ultimate thing is, I mean, if the cost got to come down, everything now is $1 million, and I'm like, oof, it's to get it down by a factor of from $1 million to 100,000. That puts new life into it, but I mean, it's got to come down that much.
And again, the thing is, these first players, they have to pay for the certification. Right now, there's no certification process. So Joby is about to be certified, but that has cost them a lot of money to reach that threshold. The next players, they don't have to. They will not have to pay that threshold to get certified. It's going to cost them much less. And so. Something else, maybe the first player are not going to be the most successful one. If you look at aviations, 100 years ago, the Wright brothers didn't make much money out of their first plane, but a year later, outside Paris, there was 20 companies building airplanes, and at the end, Boeing and Airbus were the two successful, but they were not the first. And that might be the story here. Maybe the real successful one will be the one that will start in 3 or 4 years, where everything will be fully ready. But of course, for the first one, they need to get certified, get industrialized. The infrastructure need to be improved. We need a fast charger. Maybe tomorrow, hydrogen pipe to refuel.
I love the hydrogen thing. Look, I think that's the most exciting thing out there right now. I mean, the green thing is not, the environmental thing is not going away. And ultimately, I wonder right now if the biggest, you think about, we've already pushed the edge of jet engine technology. It's very difficult unless we create, ceramics, some very competitive, high temperature ceramics. We're already pushing the boundaries of jet engine technology.
Yeah.
So I love the hydrogen thing. I think that's really, that is
And-
probably the wave of the, for you think about commercial airlines, that's got to be the wave of the future, I think, in the next 25, 30 years.
And to be green, you need to produce hydrogen in a green way, which will be it's like electricity, which will be the next step. Right now, nobody's producing green energy really.
Right.
So that's still going to be the issue. But at least the platform are going to be ready for a pure green electricity.
Yeah,
that's for sure.
Yeah, gotcha. What's got you really excited about space?
It's funny. Space is another boundary. You can see space as where the new Australia. I don't know if you remember, but Australia was populated by the British in the 18th century with basically prisoners and women. And space could be this. It could be the new El Dorado for people that are struggling a little bit on Earth, whether they're the prisoners or others. But it's a new frontier. Of course, the business model, it's still related to Earth. What are the things that maybe everything that's being produced that is producing CO2 on Earth, to some extent, how could it be externalized in low Earth orbit? And how can and if low Earth orbit is cheap, then how can we start mining asteroids with cheap vehicles and bring the good stuff on Earth to make better infrastructure and to have a better Earth? At the end, we still want to protect Earth and outsource or relocalize what's not good for Earth and that could be better in space.
I'm loving the just right now the internet from space. I mean, 25 years ago I was thinking about I couldn't wait for XM Sirius to launch. You kept reading about I can't wait for that was kind of the beginning of the revolution. And now you're talking about low Earth orbit, internet, satellites, get rid of the cable guy, just put an antenna up.
Yeah, and what's a huge consumer of energy on Earth is all these huge data center because they need to be cooled down. And if we keep producing this data center at the pace right now, it's going to consume more energy than we can produce in 30 years. So just by putting these guys into Earth, into low Earth orbits, then it's going to save a lot of energy on Earth, basically.
So instead of beaming in data to Detroit or New York, we're beaming it up to low Earth orbit.
Yeah. And so that's one example. Then we are looking at startups that want to produce more stuff in space, and because there's zero gravity in space, then you can produce things differently, whether it's new tissues, new medicines, or fiber optics or other things. But we don't know yet. What we know is I am 100% convinced that a lot of things will be able to be manufactured in space and probably brought back. With either much better performance or much cheaper than what we do on Earth.
Wow.
And now, because of the cost of launch, launching a space station now is accessible for startups.
Yeah.
So we are targeting not only one international space station in the next 10 years, but probably 10 or 100, and not 5 people on Earth on a regular basis, but more thousands.
I was talking to Dan Katz yesterday, and he was saying that they're launching what, 500,000. It's called, they're putting a satellite up for $500,000.
Yeah.
And you're like, wow. I mean, that's once again, going back to the hey, look, maybe I'm just not quite the adopter of technology, but think about going back 20 years ago, it was 20 million to do that or more if you're lucky. So
in the past, launching a geospatial satellite, the cost was 600 million, 300 million for the satellite, 300 million for the launch. Now it's much less. We barely don't need these geospatial satellites anymore. And the cost of launch now with SpaceX, it's almost like $10 million instead of 300 million. So
wow, what's going to hold us back? You know, we got a lot of great ideas out there. What's holding us back in industry? You know, we've got a lot of competition from China now, Russia. It looks like. What do we need to do to keep to stay ahead of, you know, to keep the leadership position?
no, if all these SPAC, you know, are at the end successful, and if the financial market, you know, picks up and understand what's going on in, you know, aviation and space, then there's not, which means that, you know, money is going to flow much more to that industry, then there's not much that is going to hold us back, because the technology are ready. The technology have been mature, you know, in the telecommunication industry, in the automotive industry, so everything is pretty much ready. It needs to be, you know, aerospace, you know, these technologies, so a little bit more reliable, and you know, it's lower cost for aerospace, but nothing is holding us back basically, and that's why we are expecting 10 amazing years from 2020 to at least to 2030, where, you know, a lot of things are going to happen and change our life.
Do you think it's all electric? Do you think it's all hydrogen? Is there any room for future growth in, you know, jet engine technology or you know, bio, you know, diesel, or, you know, or is everybody going? Is it just going to have to be, you know, hey, you know, go clean?
So the graal, you know, for energy is nuclear.
Okay.
So if we can find a way to bring nuclear back into something clean, that's, you know, that would allow us to go to Mars in 7 days. Okay, so that would be the next step, but we are still a bit far from that. But that's, you know, nuclear is, and, you know, will be the step after that.
It makes my head hurt. I mean, literally the whole, you know, it's, you know, we're seeing this technological revolution that, you know, it's really the third industrial revolution. I mean, it blows me away. What, how many companies now in your incubator? How many,
So we take 15 to 20 more every year. And so now we are at 60. And hopefully 3 of them are going to IPO this year. And we are working for the next, you know, 3 that will IPO the year after. But yeah, we are, that late stage accelerator is taking 20 new startups every year. The early stage one are, you know, we're going to have 4 this year. And they should take, you know, 10. So yeah, we are at an inflection point where we're going to take much more startups into our portfolio from now on.
Now, is your seed capital, is it coming from your major VCs like 8VC and some of the you know, what? You know,
it's a mix. Now we are seeing more and more family office entering into the game, either through our fund or directly. Yeah, VC, but a lot of you know, individuals want to have access to these technologies. Then that's exciting because it's broadening the interest. Basically, it's not a, you know, 50 VC that have expressed interest, but it's, you know, more and more family office that want to enter into the game.
Gotcha. Now, is on the investment side of the house, are you looking for like you know, when you say, hey, look, is it your fund? Is it, hey, just you know, kick into this company? How does it all work when you're talking about a family office? Are they investing in certain portfolio companies? Or are they investing in the fund, and then you guys are kind of rooting out the next technology? And quite frankly, how is industry? Is industry playing with you at all? The Rockwell Collins, the Garmins, and folks, or are they, you know, working with you, working against you, or are they sort of ambivalent?
Yeah, we always need more money. So that's the first point. When we're talking to family office that are interested in our portfolio companies, we ask them to invest in our funds and co-invest with us in the portfolio. Mm-hmm. And then the corporate, yes, they are playing with us in a way, either through retainers to have access to our deal flow, or directly investing into our funds. So, and depending, Boeing used to have their own vehicle. The others we're doing, you know, Northrop has been doing direct investments in some of our portfolio, you know, companies. Lockheed's as their own vehicle, and they've been investing in a couple of our portfolio company too. So it depends. They all have their own strategy. They're all looking right now at the at the ecosystem, and as we are one of the major player, being global and the earliest and the biggest, we play with everyone.
That's awesome. No, I mean, it's pretty, I really didn't understand, I see a lot of private equity money out there. I see a lot of venture capital out there. I didn't realize you guys are out there as an incubator, promoting it all. So it's pretty exciting stuff. Will you come back on, talk to us about some of the successes of your companies?
Of course, anytime.
Let's have you back on in a couple of months to talk about some of the successes of the Jovies, the Archers are seeing, some of the new technologies you're seeing coming down the pipe.
Yeah, for sure.
Thanks, Francois, for coming on.
Thanks, Greg.
So, Francois Chopard with Starburst, Aviation Defense, and Space Incubator. Thank you.
Good. Yeah.
I hope you enjoyed the latest edition of the Aerospace Executive Podcast. You can reach out to me directly, Craig at northstaresg.com, or check us out at www.northstaresg.com. You can subscribe to this podcast on iTunes, Stitcher, Podbean, or on YouTube. Just do a search for Aerospace Executive Podcast. Thanks again. I'm Craig Piven.